AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade of unresolved family issues. I, 34M, have a younger sister, Emily, 30F, and we've had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Our family isn't abusive or anything extreme, but there's always been a persistent undercurrent of competition, favoritism, and unresolved resentment, primarily from our parents. Growing up, my parents always seemed to celebrate Emily's achievements more openly than mine. When I got into college, I remember my mom saying to Emily, "See, you could have done better, even when I had a full scholarship." That kind of subtle undermining continued for years. Emily never really acknowledged it or apologized, and over time, I learned to suppress my feelings rather than confront her. After college, I moved to another state for work and gradually distanced myself from my family because interactions were exhausting and emotionally draining. I started to build my own life, made friends, and eventually got married to my partner, Sarah, 3 years ago. Sarah has always been supportive and understands the dynamics of my family. Early in our relationship, I explained my family situation to her, and she was sympathetic but encouraged me to try and mend bridges if possible. I occasionally called my parents, or Emily, but I never felt the same warmth or connection I hoped for. Fast forward to last year, Emily got engaged. Initially, I felt a mix of happiness and anxiety. Part of me wanted to be there for her, but the idea of a big family event with unresolved tension made me anxious. I tried to reach out early to discuss plans, and our conversations were polite but superficial. She never acknowledged past grievances, and any attempt I made to bring up past issues was deflected or minimized. When I mentioned feeling hurt by things from our childhood, she said, "We were kids, you need to let it go," which I interpreted as dismissive. I tried to let go for a while, but the more she brushed off my feelings, the more I realized that attending her wedding would feel like I was pretending everything was okay, when it really isn't. 6 months ago, Emily sent out a formal invitation with a handwritten note. She expressed that she really hoped I could make it, and that it wouldn't be the same without me. I agonized over it. I love Emily, but I felt deeply hurt and invalidated by years of dismissiveness. I decided to be honest with her, writing a long email explaining that I didn't feel ready to attend because of unresolved feelings from our past. I clarified that I was not trying to punish her or ruin her wedding, but I couldn't participate in something that required me to ignore a decade of emotional neglect. I also said I hoped we could start rebuilding our relationship at a pace that felt safe for me. I sent it with no expectation of her immediate response. Her reply was short and cold. She said she was disappointed and hurt and accused me of making everything about myself instead of celebrating her happiness. She implied that my absence was a selfish act and that I was effectively excluding myself from the family. I tried to reply calmly, reiterating that this was about my emotional boundaries and not about trying to hurt her, but she blocked me on social media and hasn't spoken to me since. This has caused a massive rift in my family. My parents are devastated and constantly calling me to reconsider. They argue that family comes first, that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events, and that I'm being unnecessarily harsh. My aunts and uncles have also reached out, some pleading, some expressing outright anger. Sarah supports my decision completely, saying it's better to honor my emotional limits than to attend out of obligation. Some friends have expressed that I should go anyway, for appearances, or at least to maintain a semblance of family unity. Others have said I'm justified, pointing out that family boundaries are valid, especially when the pattern of behavior has been persistent and unresolved. The fallout has been stressful. Emily has made subtle comments through mutual friends, suggesting I'm resentful and toxic. My parents have expressed guilt, saying they failed to make Emily see my perspective. Extended family members have taken sides, some quietly supporting Emily, some sympathetic to me, and it has created awkward situations at gatherings I do attend. I'm not entirely closed off to reconciliation, but right now, attending her wedding feels impossible without compromising my mental health. I've considered therapy for myself to navigate this further, but the family pressure continues to mount. I know that weddings are significant milestones and that my absence might hurt Emily, but I can't shake the feeling that if I go without feeling emotionally safe, it will do more harm to me than good. I feel caught between wanting to maintain some connection with my sister and protecting my own well-being. I also feel a bit guilty because I don't want my decision to cast me as the villain in the family narrative, but I'm struggling with how to reconcile all of this without feeling like I'm betraying myself. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding due to unresolved family issues, even though it has caused a major conflict within the family. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my house after he insulted my career. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we had a fairly typical sibling relationship, full of teasing and minor fights, but overall we were very supportive of each other. Over the past few years, Emma started dating someone named Kyle, 30M. From the beginning, I had some reservations about him. He seemed kind of smug and often made offhand comments that felt passive-aggressive, but Emma seemed happy, so I tried to be welcoming. I live in a fairly small apartment in a big city. I work as a software engineer and have spent years climbing my way up to a management position at a mid-sized tech company. I love my work and take pride in it. I also work long hours, so I don't have a ton of free time. My apartment is modest, but it's mine, and I like to keep it organized and quiet. A few months ago, Emma and Kyle mentioned that they were going on a short trip for a weekend. The problem was that their plans fell through last minute, and they were going to be in the city for a couple of days anyway. Emma asked if Kyle could crash at my place for those nights, since it was cheaper than a hotel. Normally, I'm okay hosting guests, but I felt a little uneasy about this request because I don't particularly like Kyle's attitude and I value my privacy. I told Emma I wasn't comfortable letting him stay at my apartment, but I offered to meet them for dinner or hang out in a public place. Emma got really upset and said I was being unreasonable and unsisterly. She insisted that Kyle didn't have anywhere else to go and that it would only be for 2 nights. I stood my ground and reiterated that my home is my sanctuary and I didn't feel comfortable hosting him. Emma eventually left it at that, though she was clearly annoyed. The next day, Emma called me crying. She said Kyle had made a hurtful comment to her about me behind my back. According to her, he said that I was overpaid and overrated for doing a job anyone could do, and that I probably don't deserve the position I have. I was shocked and hurt, and it made me even more certain that I didn't want him in my home. A week later, Emma came over unannounced. She asked me to talk to her, and I reluctantly agreed. During the conversation, she tried to argue that I was being unfair and that I should get over Kyle's comment. I told her that I wasn't obligated to let someone stay in my home who had directly insulted me and my work. She got defensive and started saying that I was overreacting and holding a grudge. Then she said something that really pushed me over the edge. She suggested that maybe I was being difficult because I was jealous of Kyle or insecure about my job. I was furious. I told her that my feelings had nothing to do with jealousy and everything to do with respect and boundaries. I reminded her that the person in question had belittled my career and that she should not expect me to tolerate that behavior just because I'm her sister. Emma stormed out, and we haven't really spoken much since. Our parents got involved, and they tried to mediate. They said that I was being too rigid and that I should compromise for the sake of family harmony. I explained my position to them, but they said I could have at least try to be nice and that refusing to host Kyle was cold. I feel like I'm being blamed for standing up for myself. A few days ago, Emma texted me a long message. She said she was hurt that I didn't support her and that I was letting Kyle's words ruin our relationship. She also implied that my career success has made me distant and unapproachable, which really stung. I haven't replied because I don't want to escalate things. Here's the thing. I feel like I did the right thing by not letting Kyle stay at my place. He insulted me personally and professionally, and I don't see why I should tolerate that just to accommodate someone else. My apartment is my personal space, and I have every right to decide who is allowed in. On the other hand, I can see that Emma feels caught in the middle. She's trying to defend her boyfriend, and now she's upset with me. Our relationship has always been close, and I hate the idea of this causing long-term damage. Part of me wonders if I overreacted, but another part of me thinks that people need to respect boundaries, and Cal clearly disrespected mine. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my apartment after he insulted my career? Extra context. I have hosted other friends and even distant relatives before, and I usually enjoy it. The difference here is that this particular person has been rude and dismissive about my life choices and career. I also work long hours and value my personal space more than I value avoiding conflict. I'm bracing myself for a lot of responses calling me harsh or inflexible, but I genuinely want to know if I'm in the wrong here. I don't want to damage my relationship with my sister, but I also don't think I should allow someone to disrespect me in my own home. Has anyone else experienced a similar situation where a family member's partner was toxic or disrespectful? How did you handle it without completely burning bridges? I'm hoping for perspective because right now I feel both justified and guilty at the same time. AITA for refusing to let my husband attend his brother's wedding because of past behavior, which caused a huge family fallout. I, 38F, have been married to my husband, Ryan, 40M, for 10 years. We have 2 children together, ages 8 and 5, and generally maintain a happy household. Ryan has a younger brother, Tom, 35M, who I have had a complicated relationship with over the years. While I have tried to maintain a cordial relationship with him, he has a history of being manipulative, entitled, and sometimes verbally abusive during family events. Ryan's family dynamics are complicated, and there's a lot of tension that tends to flare up around holidays and big events. Recently, Tom announced that he was getting married. The wedding is in 3 months, and Ryan's family has been pressuring us to attend. I initially thought this would be straightforward, but then I discovered a history of unresolved issues that made me extremely uncomfortable. 2 years ago, at another family wedding, Tom got into a shouting match with Ryan over a trivial disagreement in front of the entire family. Ryan has confided that it was extremely stressful for him, and he had trouble sleeping for days afterward. On top of that, Tom has a pattern of passive-aggressively criticizing Ryan for his career, parenting, and lifestyle choices whenever the family gathers. Every time Ryan attends a family event with Tom, ends with him feeling drained and anxious. Given this, I told Ryan that I would not be comfortable with him attending Tom's wedding. I explained that his mental and emotional well-being is a priority and that I am concerned about the toll being around Tom and his behavior might take. I suggested that we could send a heartfelt gift, a card, and perhaps a recorded message congratulating the couple instead. Ryan initially agreed that avoiding unnecessary stress was sensible, but he began facing immense pressure from his parents, his siblings, and extended family. They told him he was being unreasonable and letting a past incident ruin family traditions. They also implied that if he didn't attend, I was controlling him and forcing him to cut off family. Ryan started wavering because he wanted to maintain peace with his family. He expressed guilt about potentially upsetting them and missing a milestone in Tom's life. I explained that attending an event where he would likely be criticized or manipulated wasn't a reasonable expectation of support, and that prioritizing mental health over social obligation was justified. I also reminded him that family shouldn't demand attendance if it comes at a personal cost. A few weeks ago, the issue blew up. Tom sent a group text to Ryan and family, saying that Ryan needs to get his priorities straight and that it's embarrassing to have him refuse family celebrations over a silly grudge. The rest of the family chimed in, pressuring Ryan to attend and implying that me preventing him from going was controlling. Ryan tried to mediate by suggesting we could attend only part of the wedding or stay in a hotel separate from Tom, but they rejected every compromise. They said that partial attendance wasn't acceptable and that he needed to be present for the ceremony and reception. I held my ground and reiterated that attending under those conditions was not healthy for Ryan. He eventually decided to side with me, and we informed the family that he would not attend. The fallout has been immediate and severe. Ryan's parents are furious saying we are breaking family bonds and that I manipulated him into missing his brother's wedding. Extended family members have called, texted, and confronted us at various events, accusing me of being controlling and selfish. Tom has blocked Ryan on social media and refuses to speak to him, claiming he is dishonoring family. Despite my rationale, I feel guilty because I know Ryan wanted to maintain peace and attend his brother's wedding. I also know that our decision has created tension not only between Ryan and his family, but also within my own social circle, as mutual friends are aware of the drama. On the other hand, I believe that allowing Ryan to attend would have caused him emotional distress, possibly ruining his experience and creating further conflict during the wedding itself. Additional context: Ryan's relationship with Tom has been consistently stressful for years, with repeated arguments and public confrontations. We have offered alternatives, including sending a personal video, attending only part of the wedding, and giving a generous gift, all of which were rejected by the family. Ryan supports my decision now, but he initially felt torn between pleasing family and protecting his well-being. The family feud has affected holiday gatherings, birthdays, and other events, with some relatives avoiding us entirely and others expressing anger. I have tried to communicate calmly and reasonably, explaining that mental health and household boundaries take precedence over family pressure, but my explanation has been met with hostility. I've considered attending the wedding myself, without Ryan, to maintain peace, but I worry that doing so would imply that his well-being is unimportant and could encourage future manipulation by Tom and the family. I also want to maintain a united front with Ryan and ensure that our children see their father prioritizing his own health and boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband attend his brother's wedding because of Tom's past behavior and the emotional toll it takes. Even though it has caused a huge family conflict, I feel like I am protecting Ryan and our household from unnecessary stress. But his family and some mutual friends see me as controlling, selfish, and unsupportive of family. Was I wrong to set this hard boundary, knowing it would upset his brother, parents, and extended family? AITA for refusing to lend my sister money for her wedding, even though everyone else in the family thinks I should? I, 32F, come from a family where money has always been a sensitive topic. My parents weren't wealthy, and they taught us to be careful with finances, save when we can, and avoid debt. My sister, 29F, has always had a more carefree approach. She spends freely, often borrows money from friends and family, and rarely sticks to a budget. I'm disciplined with my finances, I have a steady career, and I've managed to save a decent amount. But I'm also careful not to overextend myself. Recently, my sister got engaged. Her fiancé's family is wealthy, and they're paying for most of the wedding. However, she insists on having an extravagant reception, a designer dress, and a honeymoon in Europe. She asked me to lend her $15,000 so she could cover the extra costs she claims her fiancé's family won't pay. She emphasized that it's just a loan and that I could take my time paying her back. I told her no. I explained that while I want her to have a beautiful wedding, $15,000 is not something I can comfortably lend, and I'm not comfortable putting myself in a position where I might not get it back. She got upset and accused me of being selfish. She said I'm the only one in the family who can afford to help, and that everyone else has contributed in different ways, implying that I'm expected to give more just because I have savings. This is where it gets messy. Our parents and extended family have now started pressuring me. My mom called me multiple times, crying and saying I'm hurting my sister. My dad hinted that I'm being ungenerous, and that family is supposed to support each other. Cousins and aunts have made comments at gatherings about how I should step up, saying that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events and that money shouldn't be an obstacle. I've tried to reason with everyone, telling them that supporting her doesn't necessarily mean giving her my savings, and that there are other ways to help, like helping with planning, organizing, or contributing in smaller, non-financial ways. But they dismiss it. My sister's fiancé has also started giving me subtle guilt trips, mentioning how much they're spending and implying that it would mean a lot if I helped. The situation escalated when my sister called me in tears, saying that she felt betrayed and that she thought I loved her. She accused me of letting money come before family and told me she might rethink having me involved in the wedding if I don't help financially. I told her that I love her, but my support doesn't have to be financial, and I'm not comfortable lending such a large sum. I suggested alternatives, like helping her find ways to cut costs, brainstorming budget-friendly options, and even helping her plan a smaller but still beautiful reception. She refused and said she doesn't want to compromise, that she's worked hard for this moment, and that I'm undermining her happiness. I feel torn. Part of me thinks I should just lend the money to keep the peace, but another part of me feels that giving it would set a bad precedent. I've seen her borrow money before and not repay it on time, and I don't want to enable that behavior. I also feel hurt that my family is pressuring me and trying to guilt me into giving money I'm not comfortable parting with. AITA for standing my ground and refusing to lend my sister $15,000 for her wedding, even though it's causing tension with her and the rest of the family. For context, I've been careful not to use my financial support as a way to control her, and I've genuinely offered help in other forms. I've also reminded everyone that a loan is different from a gift, and that I don't want this to turn into a permanent debt I can't manage. My sister and the family are treating this as though I'm being cruel or selfish, but I honestly feel like I'm trying to be responsible. To make matters worse, my sister has started hinting that if I don't help financially, she might leave me out of key wedding events, like being part of the bridal party or attending certain pre-wedding celebrations. My parents have implied that my relationship with her could be permanently damaged over this. I want to support her emotionally, but I also have my own financial goals, saving for a house, paying off student loans, and building an emergency fund. Giving her $15,000 would significantly impact my plans. I tried explaining this to her, saying that helping emotionally and helping financially are not the same thing, and that I can be fully involved and supportive without lending money. She's accused me of making her feel ashamed for asking for help, and my parents have accused me of being cold. At this point, I feel like I'm being punished for being responsible. I also feel conflicted because I don't want to cause a rift with my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my financial stability. I've even considered offering a smaller loan, like $2,000 to $3,000, but she refused, saying that wouldn't make a real difference. I'm exhausted from the guilt tripping, and I'm starting to wonder if refusing to lend the money really makes me the villain here, or if everyone else is just prioritizing their idea of generosity over actual financial responsibility. I'm curious if I'm truly in the wrong for setting a boundary, or if I should just give in to keep my family happy. So, AITA for refusing to lend my sister $15,000 for her wedding, even though everyone else thinks I should. AITA for refusing to help my best friend financially after she consistently ignored my boundaries. I, 28F, have been best friends with Lisa, 27F, since college. Our friendship has always been intense. We're the type who share everything from embarrassing moments to deep secrets. But over the past few years, I've started feeling like there's a serious imbalance. Lisa is wonderful in many ways. She's loyal, funny, and fiercely protective of her friends. The problem is she has a habit of taking advantage of people financially and emotionally, and I have consistently been on the receiving end of that pattern. It started in college, when Lisa was struggling with tuition and rent. I had a part-time job and some savings, and she asked to borrow money for textbooks. I gave her $200, thinking it was a small amount, and I wanted to help. She promised to pay me back by the end of the semester. The money never came, and she made excuses about how she had unexpected expenses. I was frustrated, but I chalked it up to her being young and irresponsible. Over time, similar incidents repeated themselves. Small loans turned into larger ones. Rent, car repairs, bills, and every time, she would either delay repayment or offer vague promises that never materialized. After college, we both started working full-time, but Lisa's financial habits didn't improve. She had a good job, but consistently spent beyond her means. She would ask to borrow anything from a few $100s to over $1,000. Each time, I tried to set boundaries. I told her I couldn't lend her money anymore and offered other forms of support, like helping her budget, look for deals, or even accompany her to appointments where she needed help. She accepted the advice, but never changed her borrowing behavior. In fact, she started guilting me for not helping financially, saying things like, "You're my best friend. I thought you'd have my back." Or, "I guess our friendship doesn't matter if you can't help me when I need it." This put me in an impossible position because I value our friendship, but I also have my own financial responsibilities and goals, including saving for a house and paying off student loans. The tipping point came last month. Lisa called me in a panic, saying her car broke down and she needed $1,500 to fix it immediately, or she couldn't get to work. She has a history of emergencies and has always expected me to step in. I was firm this time and said I couldn't lend her money, citing my own financial obligations. I offered to help her research cheaper repair options, loan programs, or temporary rideshare solutions. She got extremely angry and started yelling, saying I was being selfish, that a real friend wouldn't let her fail, and that I was abandoning her. I tried to stay calm and repeat that I wanted to help in ways that didn't involve money, but she ended the call abruptly and hasn't spoken to me since. Mutual friends have started asking me what happened, and I've been honest but vague. Some people say I was right to set boundaries, while others imply I'm cold or unsupportive. My partner is fully on my side, emphasizing that I am not responsible for covering someone else's irresponsibility, no matter how close they are. My parents also support me, reminding me that friendship shouldn't come at the expense of my own financial stability or mental health. Still, part of me feels guilty. We've been through a lot together, and I don't want this to be the end of our friendship. I worry that she'll harbor resentment forever and that mutual friends might see me as heartless. I've thought about trying to mend the friendship by writing a letter explaining my position, emphasizing that I care about her and I want to maintain the relationship, but I don't want it to come across as condescending or as if I'm lecturing her. I also considered offering to help her find a financial counselor or creating a strict repayment plan for any future loans, but I suspect she would resent the limitations and see them as further proof that I'm selfish. Another complicating factor is that Lisa has occasionally lent me money when I was in dire straits, but it was always smaller amounts and accompanied by constant reminders about how I owed her. I never refused, but I also never felt that the power dynamic was fair. She expects loyalty, understanding, and financial help from me, but doesn't extend the same generosity without conditions. It has reached a point where I feel that continuing to lend her money, or try to maintain the friendship without boundaries, would be emotionally draining and unsustainable. I recognize that friendships require compromise and support, but I also believe that enabling someone to consistently make poor financial choices or guilt-tripping their friends isn't healthy for anyone involved. I want to be there for Lisa emotionally, to celebrate her achievements and support her in crises that don't involve money, but the idea of lending her $1,500 or more when she has a pattern of not repaying and manipulating guilt feels like I'd be setting myself up for more stress and resentment. Reddit AITA for refusing to lend my best friend money after repeated incidents. Even though it has caused tension and possibly ended our friendship, AITA for refusing to cover my brother's rent after he lost his job. Even though our parents are pressuring me to help, I, 29F, have a younger brother, Matt, 25M, who has always been difficult to deal with financially. Growing up, our parents always tried to shield him from consequences, which meant that he never really learned how to manage money responsibly. He's intelligent and charming, but he's very impulsive and has a habit of taking risks without thinking about long-term consequences. I've always been the responsible sibling. I worked my way through college while holding 2 part-time jobs, and I now have a stable career as a nurse in a hospital, which comes with a decent salary and some financial stability. I'm careful with my money, have savings, and own my own apartment. Over the years, I've tried to help Matt when he's really needed it, like lending him money for groceries or medical emergencies, but I've always drawn a line when it comes to ongoing expenses like rent or bills. Recently, Matt lost his job at a small startup that went under. He called me in a panic, explaining that he didn't have enough to cover rent this month and that his landlord was threatening eviction. He asked if I could cover his rent temporarily until he found a new job. I told him honestly that I couldn't do that. Covering his rent would be thousands of dollars and would compromise my own savings and stability. I reminded him that I could help him in other ways, like reviewing his resume, helping him network, or giving him a small amount for groceries, but I could not take on his monthly rent. Matt got upset and started pressuring me, saying I always refused to help him when it matters most, and that I was selfish. I tried to explain that I've helped him in emergencies before, but covering rent is a completely different scale. He argued that since I earn a good salary, I should be willing to share my success to help him avoid eviction. I didn't give in, and the conversation ended badly. I could hear him sighing heavily and muttering under his breath about how I never cared about him. I felt hurt because I do care about him, but I also feel like enabling him financially would do more harm than good. He needs to learn how to budget, save, and handle setbacks. After this, I told our parents about the situation, expecting some support or at least understanding. Instead, they called me cold and unsisterly. They said that if I really loved my brother, I would help him pay rent temporarily and that I shouldn't let him face eviction when I have the means to prevent it. I explained my reasoning again, that I can't take on someone else's monthly expenses and that giving him money for rent wouldn't teach him responsibility. But they kept insisting that family should help each other, especially in times of crisis. Now, the tension between Matt and me has escalated. He refuses to speak to me unless I agree to pay his rent, and our parents are constantly reminding me that I owe him support. I feel trapped because I want to maintain a relationship with him, but I also don't want to put myself at financial risk or enable poor financial habits. I've considered compromising by giving him a smaller amount for necessities, like groceries or public transportation, but I keep drawing the line at rent because that's a long-term commitment. I've also offered to help him find temporary work, freelance gigs, or community assistance programs that could cover some of his rent, but he's refused, insisting that I should just pay it. I'm starting to feel like my family sees me as the rich sibling who should solve everyone else's problems, but that's not how I see my role. I grew up watching my parents bail out my brother repeatedly, and I don't want to repeat the cycle. I understand that he's struggling and that eviction is scary, but I also have responsibilities to myself and my future. I've tried reasoning calmly with both Matt and my parents, but they accuse me of being heartless or selfish. I feel like no matter what I do, I'm being framed as the bad guy for not giving away thousands of dollars that I've worked hard for. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to cover my brother's rent, even though he's unemployed and our parents think I should help. Extra context. I've helped him in smaller, one-off ways before, and I've also helped him brainstorm ways to get back on his feet. I'm not unsympathetic, but I'm also trying to maintain boundaries so that I don't jeopardize my financial stability or reinforce a pattern of irresponsibility. I would really like to hear from people who have had siblings or family members in similar situations. How did you balance compassion with maintaining boundaries? How do you support a loved one without enabling bad financial habits? I'm feeling stuck and guilty even though I believe I'm doing the responsible thing. I'm bracing myself for responses that call me selfish, but I genuinely want to do right by my brother while also protecting my own future. AITA for refusing to let my adult son stay with me indefinitely after he quit his job, causing a huge family argument. I, 52F, am a single mother and have been raising my son, Alex, 27M, alone since he was very young. I work full-time as a nurse and manage all household expenses, including mortgage, utilities, and bills. Alex has always been intelligent and capable, but has a history of impulsive decisions and poor financial planning. I've tried to teach him responsibility over the years, but he tends to expect that I will solve his problems when they arise. A few months ago, Alex quit his job abruptly. He didn't have another one lined up and said he was burnt out and needed time to figure out what he really wanted. Shortly after quitting, he asked if he could move back in with me. He framed it as just until I find my next opportunity and said it would be temporary. I was hesitant because I knew from past experience that Alex's idea of temporary often stretches into months and sometimes years without much progress on his part. I asked him for a concrete plan and a timeline, but he was vague, saying only that he didn't know exactly how long it would take. I told him I couldn't commit to him moving in indefinitely. I explained that I had my own routine, responsibilities, and finances to manage. I suggested alternatives. He could stay for a short, defined period, like 2 weeks, while actively applying for jobs. He could look for temporary roommates or short-term rentals. or I could help him financially to secure a new place without relying on me for long-term housing. Alex rejected all of these options. He insisted that moving back in was the only viable solution and implied that I was being unsupportive and uncaring if I didn't agree. Over the next few days, Alex became increasingly demanding. He assumed he could eat whatever he wanted, use my car, and ignore household rules because it's his house too now, even though I make it clear that it's my house and my rules apply. When I asked him to follow basic expectations, he accused me of being controlling. He also began messaging my friends and relatives, framing the situation as me refusing to help my own son and claiming I didn't care about his mental health or well-being. The conflict reached a breaking point when Alex showed up at my house with boxes and said he was moving in immediately. I told him firmly that he could not move in without agreeing to a structured plan and timeline. He yelled, saying I was punishing him for being honest and turning my back on my own child. I reminded him that I've helped him in many ways over the years, including paying for school, medical expenses, and emergency needs, but that my support did not include an open-ended stay that would disrupt my household and finances. Alex left angrily and called my sister and father to complain. My sister accused me of being selfish and cruel, saying that families should support each other unconditionally. My father said he understood my position, but also expressed concern that I was pushing him away. Extended family members have taken sides, and some gatherings have become tense because people feel they have to choose between me and Alex. Several mutual friends have also weighed in, with some suggesting I should allow him to move in, and others agreeing that my boundaries are reasonable. I feel torn because I do want to support Alex, but I also have to consider my own household, finances, and mental health. Letting him move in indefinitely would disrupt our routines, strain my finances, and likely cause tension with my partner, who is not living with us but spends significant time here. I'm also worried about enabling a pattern where Alex expects I will always provide a safety net without him making any effort to become independent. Additional context. My house has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and limited space, making long-term cohabitation challenging for an adult son with no plans. Alex has savings, but has already spent a significant portion of it recklessly, leaving him financially unprepared for independent living. I have previously helped Alex in emergencies, but have always set boundaries to prevent him from relying on me indefinitely. Alex has been unemployed for 2 months, but has not seriously pursued job applications or alternative income streams. I have offered tangible support, including financial assistance for deposits, help with resumes, and connections for job leads, all of which Alex has shown minimal interest in pursuing. I've considered allowing him to stay for a strictly defined short period, but I worry that even a brief stay could escalate into a longer, indefinite one. I also fear that conceding would reinforce his sense of entitlement and make future conflicts more likely. I want him to understand that support does not mean unconditional accommodation, and that independence and accountability are essential. So, AITA for refusing to let my adult son stay with me indefinitely after he quit his job, even though it has caused a major family dispute. I feel like I am setting reasonable boundaries to protect my household and my finances, but Alex and some relatives see me as selfish and unsupportive. Was I wrong to prioritize my household stability over his desire for an open-ended stay? AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's elaborate wedding plans, even though it's tearing my family apart? I, 29F, have always been the practical sibling. My younger sister, Emily, 26F, is incredibly creative, charismatic, and has a flair for dramatics, which, to be honest, I've admired from afar. Our parents have always encouraged Emily to pursue her passions, while I was often gently nudged toward practicality. I am currently an engineer with a stable career, live alone, and enjoy a relatively low-key lifestyle. Emily, on the other hand, is an event planner and thrives on attention and spectacle. Emily got engaged last year, and from the start, she made it clear that her wedding would be legendary. She began sending me ideas almost immediately. Themed outfits for the bridal party, intricate floral arrangements, choreographed dances, and even a surprise flash mob she wanted us all to participate in. At first, I thought she was joking, but it became clear that she was serious. I tried to compromise. I explained that I am not comfortable performing in public, especially in choreographed dances or participating in highly theatrical events. I offered to help with practical tasks like budgeting, coordinating vendors, or assisting with guest lists. Emily was dismissive, saying that those tasks were boring and that my support wouldn't feel meaningful unless I fully committed to her vision. I reminded her that I had attended several of her friends' weddings before and had never been expected to act as a performer. She argued that this was different because it was her wedding. Over the next few months, the requests escalated. She wanted me to design a costume for the bridal party, participate in a 3-minute dance number during the reception, and wear a statement outfit that matched her overall theme. The most extreme was when she asked me to ride in a vintage car during the ceremony entrance wearing a full theatrical costume while waving to guests. I politely declined, explaining that I am claustrophobic and don't enjoy being the center of attention. Emily reacted with visible frustration, saying, "I can't believe you would ruin my day like this." Our parents are completely on Emily's side. They insist that I am being selfish and unsupportive. My father said, "This is your sister's one big moment. If you love her, you'll swallow your discomfort and participate." My mother went further, telling me I am ruining the family dynamic by refusing to engage in what she called Emily's happiness project. I tried to find middle ground, like attending rehearsals in a supportive role or helping coordinate behind the scenes. But Emily refused, insisting that anything I do must be visible and performative. I also have a history of anxiety that worsens in social situations where I am performing or being watched. Participating in the public, theatrical parts of her wedding could trigger panic attacks, and I've explained this to both Emily and our parents. They accused me of overreacting and being dramatic. The breaking point came 2 weeks before the wedding. Emily called me crying, saying that if I didn't commit to the performance, she would be forced to remove me from the wedding entirely. I told her that while I love her and want to celebrate with her, I cannot put myself in situations that cause me serious anxiety. She interpreted this as me choosing comfort over family and said I had no right to dictate how she celebrates her wedding. When I showed up at the rehearsal dinner, tension was palpable. Our parents openly criticized me in front of family, saying I was making things awkward and selfish. Some relatives whispered that I should just get over it and participate like a normal sister. I stayed calm and spent most of the evening talking with a few distant cousins who understood my perspective. Emily barely spoke to me, and she avoided me entirely during the rehearsal. On the wedding day, I attended the ceremony and reception, but refused to participate in any performance or wear the elaborate costume. Emily's wedding planner, who had previously been neutral, openly expressed disappointment, saying my lack of involvement was a huge blow to the vision. During the reception, my parents subtly criticized me in front of guests, making snide remarks like, "Well, someone had to ruin the show." Emily avoided me entirely, and even the photographer tried to capture us together shots, which Emily quietly refused. Now, the aftermath has been difficult. Emily has barely spoken to me since the wedding, and our parents are upset with me, calling me selfish and accusing me of lacking family loyalty. Some extended family members have even reached out to ask why I couldn't just support my sister, which makes me feel even more isolated. I feel guilty because I know Emily had a vision, and I know my refusal disappointed her, but I also know that participating in something that triggers severe anxiety isn't reasonable to ask of anyone. I've tried to explain my perspective calmly, emphasizing that my love and support are still there, but expressed differently. My parents counter that love requires sacrifice, especially for major family milestones. I feel torn between staying true to my own mental health and respecting my sister's wishes, but I also feel like the family is framing me as the villain, which I don't think I deserve. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's elaborate wedding performances and costumes, even though it upset her and our parents. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to allow my in-laws to stay in our house during the birth of our first child. My husband, Matt, 32M, and I, 30F, have been married for 5 years and are expecting our first child in a few weeks. From the beginning, Matt and I agreed that the early weeks after the birth would be just the two of us, time to bond with the baby and adjust to parenthood together. We also agreed that we wanted to set boundaries with our families regarding visits, sleepovers, and involvement. We knew Matt's parents could be overbearing, and my parents are loving but tend to overstay their welcome if not given strict timelines. About 3 months ago, Matt's mom, Susan, 60F, started dropping hints that she would probably want to come and stay for a while when the baby arrived. Matt told her gently that we hadn't decided on anything yet and that we would let her know. At first, it was just casual mentions, but as the due date approached, she became more insistent. She started saying things like, "I think you really need me there for the first month. You'll be exhausted and I know best, and you'll regret it if I'm not there to help you." Matt and I talked at length and agreed we didn't want anyone staying with us immediately after birth. We both grew up with well-meaning relatives who could be overwhelming during vulnerable times, and we wanted to protect our mental health, our relationship, and our ability to bond with our child without constant advice or interference. We tried to communicate this to Susan delicately. Matt told her we appreciated her willingness to help, but that we wanted to establish our own routines first. He suggested that she could visit for a short stay a month or so after the birth. Susan's response was not just disappointment, but anger. She said we were being ridiculous and selfish and claimed that no new parent could manage without her. She implied that if we didn't let her stay, she might not visit at all. Matt tried to stand firm, but said it turned into a long argument where she cried, yelled, and accused him of choosing me over his family. I felt anxious just hearing about it and stayed out of the conversation as much as I could, but it was clear she was unwilling to respect boundaries. Things escalated when Susan started sending long, daily messages to both of us about how ungrateful we were and how she knew exactly what would happen if she wasn't there. She kept emphasizing that she had raised 3 kids and knew all the tricks, and that we would regret not letting her stay. I responded once, saying we appreciated her concern, but that our decision was final. She replied that this wasn't a decision she could respect, and that we'd see what happens after the baby comes. Her messages became increasingly passive-aggressive and guilt-laden, and it began to affect my mental health. I started worrying about what would happen if she tried to come anyway, how Matt would handle it, and whether this would cause a huge family conflict during a time that was supposed to be joyful. My parents, who were much easier to manage, offered to help in ways we preferred, cooking meals, helping with errands, and checking in daily by phone. They understood that our house was off-limits for overnight stays during the first month. I tried to explain the same arrangement to Susan, but she refused to accept it. Matt and I even offered to schedule a weekend visit after the baby was a few weeks old so she could meet the child and help in a controlled way. She flatly rejected this, saying it wasn't good enough and that she knew best. A few weeks ago, Matt and I drafted a clear plan. No overnight visitors for the first month, scheduled visits only during the day, and everyone would respect our household rules. We sent it to both sets of parents. My parents agreed immediately, happy to follow the plan. Susan sent a long, angry message back, claiming that we were dictating terms in our own home, and that we were turning her into a stranger to her own grandchild. She also said that Matt was weak for agreeing to such restrictions. Matt showed me the message, and I told him that I didn't want to compromise, that we had to stick to the boundaries we agreed on for our own sanity. Yesterday, Matt's father, Robert, 65M, got involved. He called Matt and said he supported Susan, claiming that family is everything, and that Matt and I were being unreasonable. He suggested that they could come anyway and just see what happens. Matt said no, firmly, but the conversation lasted over an hour with them, trying to guilt him. Afterward, I was shaking with stress. I feel trapped because I know they could attempt to show up unannounced, and Matt is worried about confrontation. I keep thinking about how this could ruin the first month with our baby. Matt and I have discussed involving a mediator, but I feel that it should not even be necessary to enforce boundaries in our own home. I'm trying to prepare myself mentally for the possibility that Susan may show up despite our wishes. I also feel a little guilty because Matt's parents are clearly upset, and there is pressure from extended family to let them be part of this special time. My friends and therapists have reassured me that we are within our rights to control who stays in our home during such a significant and vulnerable period, but I can't shake the feeling that I am causing hurt to someone who thinks they're helping. Reddit AITA for refusing to allow my in-laws to stay in our house during the first month after our baby is born, despite their anger and insistence that they should be present. AITA for refusing to let my best friend bring her dog to my apartment, even though she's upset and our other friends think I'm overreacting. I, 31F, have been living in my apartment for about 3 years now. It's a 2-bedroom place in a busy city, and while it's not huge, it's cozy and quiet. I work from home most days, and over time, I've made this space a sanctuary for myself. I enjoy the peace, and I also have a fairly strict routine with work, cleaning, and personal time. I have a best friend, Claire, 32F, who I've known since college. We've been inseparable for over a decade, and we've supported each other through almost everything: relationships, career changes, family drama, you name it. Claire has always had dogs, and she loves them dearly. Her current dog, Baxter, is a large golden retriever with a very energetic personality. He's sweet and affectionate, but he's also extremely excitable and sometimes destructive when he's anxious or overstimulated. A few weeks ago, Claire asked if she could bring Baxter to my apartment for a few hours while she went to an appointment. I told her up front that I wasn't comfortable with that. My apartment has carpeted floors, and I don't have the energy to supervise a large dog running around while I work. I also have a couple of mild allergies to pet dander, which aren't usually problematic but can flare up in enclosed spaces. I suggested we meet outside, or she could leave Baxter with a dog-sitting service for a short time. Claire was visibly upset, but said she'd try to convince me. She sent me texts explaining that Baxter doesn't do well with kennels, that leaving him alone for a few hours would stress him out, and that she really needed me to help her. I replied honestly that I understand her concern, but my boundaries are my boundaries, and I couldn't risk damage to my apartment or a flare-up of my allergies. She then got a bit passive-aggressive in her messages, saying that I was being selfish and not the friend she thought I was. She said I was prioritizing my comfort over our friendship. I tried to explain calmly that this wasn't about my feelings toward her, but about the practical limitations of my living space and my health. She responded by saying she felt hurt and that maybe I didn't value our friendship as much as I said I did. I told her that I value our friendship immensely, which is why I'm honest about my boundaries rather than letting something happen that I know would stress me out or make me resentful. She didn't respond for a few days, and then she brought it up again in a group chat we share with some mutual friends. One of our friends, Mia, said I was being ridiculous and that I should just let Baxter in for a little while. Another said that I was overthinking it and that it would be fine. I tried to explain again that I work from home, that I have carpet and furniture that I don't want damaged, and that I have mild allergies that could be triggered. I also mentioned that I haven't had pets in this apartment for a reason, and that bringing a large dog into a small space for a few hours isn't something I'm comfortable with. My friends replied that I was being overly rigid and that I was letting Claire down. After this, I haven't spoken much with Claire. When I see her, she seems distant, and I get the sense that she's upset with me for not helping her out. I feel guilty because I know she loves Baxter and struggles to leave him alone, but I also feel like my space and my health should be respected. I've considered compromising by taking Baxter for a short walk outside while she runs her appointment, or letting him stay in a crate in my apartment temporarily, but I worry that he'd bark excessively, get anxious, and still trigger my allergies. I also don't want to set a precedent that my home is available for pets whenever she needs it. I feel like my friends and Claire are framing this as me being unreasonable or unkind, but from my perspective, I'm simply maintaining boundaries that protect my living space and health. I've hosted friends with small, calm dogs before, but Baxter is much larger and more energetic than any dog I've dealt with in my apartment. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my best friend bring her dog to my apartment, even though she's upset and some of our friends think I'm overreacting. Extra context. I've tried offering alternatives like meeting outside, dog-sitting services, or leaving Baxter with her neighbor temporarily, but she insists that I should just let him in. I have no intention of ending our friendship, but I also don't want to compromise my health or my space for something I'm uncomfortable with. I just want to know if I'm being unreasonable for protecting my home and my well-being, or if I really am letting a good friend down. How do you maintain boundaries like this with close friends without causing lasting resentment? AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my apartment after she broke up with her fiancé, which caused a huge family fight. I, 33F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city with my partner, Mark, 35M. We've been together for 8 years and share responsibilities for rent, bills, and general household maintenance. My sister, Emily, 30F, recently broke up with her fiancé of 5 years and told me she was struggling emotionally and financially after the breakup. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured out her next steps. Initially, I was sympathetic and told her I could help for a few days, but she immediately insisted on staying for as long as it takes, which felt vague and potentially indefinite. I explained to her that my apartment is small, and having another adult living here full-time would be disruptive to our routines, privacy, and space. I suggested alternatives. She could stay at a short-term rental while she looked for a permanent place, or I could help her financially with moving expenses or deposits. Emily rejected all alternatives, saying that only moving in with me would help her feel safe and supported, and that asking for a rental or other help was too complicated. When I stood firm, Emily accused me of being selfish and said I didn't care about family. She claimed that because I have a stable home and steady income, I had an obligation to let her stay. I tried to reason with her, pointing out that we live in a small apartment with 1 bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and limited storage. Mark supported me, explaining that he felt uncomfortable adding another adult to our household indefinitely. Emily called that ridiculous and overreacting, saying Mark shouldn't be involved in family matters. The situation escalated when Emily showed up at our apartment unannounced with 2 large suitcases and some of her personal items, expecting to move in immediately. I told her firmly she could not stay without a concrete timeline and clear plan for leaving. She refused to leave and began yelling that I was choosing comfort over family and that I never help anyone. Mark tried to stay calm, but Emily started attacking him personally, saying he was controlling me and ruining our sisterly bond. After that confrontation, Emily called our parents and told them I'd kicked her out and was refusing to support her in her time of need. My parents called me, furious at first, saying I should help my sister and that I was being unreasonable. I tried to explain the situation calmly, including the fact that we had offered alternatives, but they were frustrated and angry, insisting that families should support each other unconditionally. Other relatives also weighed in, with some siding with Emily and others understanding my perspective. Since then, our relationship has deteriorated. Emily refuses to speak to me directly, posts vague messages on social media accusing me of being selfish, and complains to family members about my lack of compassion. Family gatherings have become tense, with relatives openly taking sides. Even Mark's family has commented, saying they don't understand why Emily can't find another place, and that I was handling the situation reasonably. I feel conflicted because I do want to support Emily, but I also have to protect my household, my partner, and my own mental health. Allowing her to move in indefinitely would disrupt our lives, create tension with Mark, and set a precedent where family members feel entitled to my space whenever they face challenges. I also worry about the impact on our routines, our privacy, and the dynamics in our home. Additional context: our apartment has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and limited storage space, making long-term cohabitation of 3 adults very challenging. Emily has some savings and the ability to find temporary accommodations, but she has insisted on moving in with me instead. I have helped Emily in the past financially and emotionally, including lending money for emergencies, supporting her through previous breakups, and assisting with moving in the past. She has a history of expecting family to accommodate her without limits, and I worry that giving in now would reinforce that pattern. I offered financial assistance, help finding a short-term rental, and emotional support, but she refused all of it. I've considered letting her stay for a few days just to reduce tension, but I worry that even a short stay could escalate into a longer, indefinite arrangement. I also feel that conceding would reinforce her sense of entitlement and make future conflicts more likely. I want Emily to understand that support does not mean giving up my household boundaries, and that independence and planning are essential. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my apartment after a breakup, even though it caused a major family feud. I feel like I am protecting my household, partner, and mental health, but Emily and some family members see me as selfish and unsupportive. Was I wrong to prioritize my household stability over her desire for an open-ended stay? AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding because of her last-minute demands? I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 28F, despite our occasional disagreements. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we shared most holidays and important events together. I've always been supportive of her, attending her college graduations, helping her move apartments, and even supporting her through breakups. My issue began when she got engaged about 6 months ago. Emma has always had a flair for drama, and I've sometimes found her personality overwhelming, but I never thought it would interfere with our family relationships. When she announced her engagement, I was genuinely excited for her. I offered to help with wedding planning, knowing she tends to get stressed easily. Initially, everything seemed normal. I helped her choose venues, dress shops, and caterers. She was particular, but I thought that was expected with weddings. About 2 months ago, she sent out a preliminary list of bridesmaids, and I was included. I was thrilled and immediately started looking for dresses and planning how to accommodate her vision. Then things started getting complicated. She requested that all bridesmaids buy dresses from a very expensive designer brand, over $800 each. I questioned if she realized this might be a financial burden for some, including me, but she insisted it was non-negotiable. I have a decent income, but $800 for a dress is a lot when you also consider travel, hotel, hair, and makeup. I decided to speak to her privately about it. I explained my concerns and asked if she could consider a more affordable option or let us choose a dress within a certain price range. Emma got upset and said that she had spent months curating a specific aesthetic, and I was ruining it by bringing up money. She also mentioned that everyone else on the list could apparently afford it, so it wasn't an issue. I felt uncomfortable because I knew some of her other bridesmaids were students or early in their careers, but I didn't want to start conflict. Then came the real problem. Last week, she sent an updated email to all bridesmaids outlining mandatory participation requirements. Among these were a series of things I found unreasonable. All bridesmaids had to attend weekly dress fittings for the next 3 months. We were required to plan and execute a full bachelorette party, including travel, lodging, and activities, without input from the bride, at a cost of no less than $2,000 per person. Every bridesmaid had to help organize and fund a rehearsal dinner at an expensive restaurant. There were expectations for full hair, makeup, and nails sessions the morning of the wedding, which would be paid out of pocket and required us to arrive 3 hours early. There was a clause stating that if we missed any obligation, we would be considered to have breached sisterhood and could be asked to leave the bridal party. I was stunned. I immediately called her to discuss it. I tried to explain that while I wanted to support her, the costs and time commitments were excessive and unrealistic for most people. I mentioned that I had other responsibilities, work, saving for a house, and taking care of my dog, and that the schedule she proposed would essentially take over my life for months. Emma accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said, "This is my wedding. If you loved me, you'd make sacrifices." After our conversation, I felt frustrated and unappreciated. I reached out to my parents and a few close friends for advice. My parents sided with me privately, saying they understood my concerns but didn't want to interfere directly with Emma's planning. My friends suggested I set firm boundaries, as her demands were extreme. I wrote Emma a long message explaining that I could not commit to her bridal party under these conditions. I emphasize that I love her and want to celebrate her wedding, but I simply cannot meet all of the financial and time demands she's laid out. I offer to attend the wedding as a guest and to help in smaller, manageable ways, like helping with the dress labels or attending a few dress fittings. Her response was a text that read, "If you can't be in my bridal party, I guess you don't really care about me. I'm disappointed that you choose money and convenience over family. I thought we were close, but clearly not." Since then, our relationship has been tense. She hasn't spoken to me except for occasional passive-aggressive comments on social media about friends who don't support me. Some of my mutual friends are upset with me, saying I should make sacrifices for family. On the other hand, I feel like she's being unreasonable and manipulative. I have no issue helping with the wedding in ways that don't financially or emotionally bankrupt me, but her reaction makes me wonder if I'm the bad person here. AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding under these circumstances. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she cut me out of her bridal party. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Jenna, 26F. Growing up, we were close at times, but also very competitive. Our parents were generally supportive of both of us, but they had a habit of pitting us against each other without realizing it. I moved out of our hometown at 22 for college and eventually settled in a city about 3 hours away. I thought distance would ease some of the tension, but the dynamics between us have always been a little fragile. About a year ago, Jenna got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 28M. I was genuinely happy for her when she called me to tell me the news, but our conversations afterwards started to reveal some underlying issues. She made comments about how she wanted her bridal party to be just a small group of friends and didn't explicitly mention me. I tried to brush it off at first, thinking she might just be joking or try to manage expectations. A few months later, she formally asked her closest friends to be bridesmaids. I noticed that while she included several mutual friends and some of her high school friends, I wasn't asked. When I brought it up gently, she said she didn't want the wedding to feel too crowded and implied that I might be too opinionated for her bridal party. I was hurt, but tried not to let it escalate. I offered to help in other ways, like assisting with decorations or the guest list, hoping that would show my support without being in the bridal party. Things got tense after that. I started getting passive-aggressive messages about how I wasn't attending certain pre-wedding events, like dress fittings or engagement parties. She and Mark even suggested that I wouldn't be helpful if I wasn't directly in the bridal party. I tried explaining that I was still happy for her and willing to help in whatever capacity she wanted, but the conversation always seemed to circle back to my exclusion. 3 months ago, she sent out her wedding invitations. I noticed that my name was on the invite, but I was seated at a table that was far away from her immediate friends and family. It felt like a clear signal that she wanted me there in name only, not as someone truly involved in the celebration. I felt invisible and honestly a bit humiliated. A week later, I called her to discuss my feelings, trying to be calm and rational. I told her that I felt hurt by not being included in her bridal party and by the way she had treated me throughout the planning process. I tried to emphasize that I wanted a relationship with her and her fiancé, but that being treated like an outsider was painful. She reacted defensively, saying that I was overreacting and that it wasn't personal. She claimed she had made these decisions to make her wedding stress-free and insisted that I was misreading the situation. I explained that I was willing to attend and support her, but not under circumstances where I felt deliberately sidelined. We didn't speak much after that conversation. I thought about attending the wedding anyway, trying to put my feelings aside for her special day. But then I got a group chat message from several of her friends who were in the bridal party. They made comments about how weird it was that I was upset and how Jenna had handled it perfectly. Some of the messages even implied that I was being dramatic. I realized that even if I went to the wedding, I might be made to feel uncomfortable or unwelcome. A few weeks ago, I made the decision not to attend. I sent Jenna a message explaining that I loved her and wanted her to have a beautiful day, but that I couldn't attend a wedding where I felt intentionally excluded and disrespected. I tried to word it in a way that was calm and empathetic, focusing on my feelings rather than accusing her. She responded angrily, saying that I was ruining her special day and that I was being selfish. She called me manipulative and suggested that if I truly loved her, I would set aside my feelings. Since then, our parents have been involved. They think I'm overreacting and say I should just go for a few hours to avoid making Jen upset. My friends, on the other hand, have told me I'm justified, saying that I don't owe anyone participation in a wedding if it comes at the cost of my self-respect. Some even suggested that Jenna's behavior is controlling and unfair. I'm now facing a lot of backlash from extended family who are upset that I'm not attending. People keep messaging me asking if we've made up yet, or implying that I'm selfish. My social media is even starting to pick up on it because my cousin posted about the wedding prep and tagged everyone except me. I feel hurt and isolated, and I can't help but wonder if I'm wrong for standing my ground. I understand that weddings are emotional and stressful, but I also feel that my feelings of exclusion and disrespect are valid. I don't want to attend just to avoid conflict, and I'm scared that going would only make me feel worse. At the same time, I can't help but feel guilty because family is disappointed and Jenna is upset. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after feeling excluded from the bridal party and treated like an outsider. AITA for refusing to co-sign a loan for my brother, even though he claims it's life or death for his business. I, 37M, have a younger brother, Ryan, 33M, who has always been very ambitious but extremely impulsive when it comes to money. Growing up, he was always the type to take risks without thinking them through, and unfortunately, that pattern has carried into adulthood. Over the years, I've helped him financially in small ways. Loaned him a few $100s here and there, co-signed on a short-term car loan once. But it's always been with strict boundaries and expectations for repayment. Ryan recently started a small catering business with a partner. He says it's been growing steadily, but then he hit a snag. He needs $50,000 to secure a commercial kitchen space, buy equipment, and cover initial staff salaries. He came to me last week asking me to co-sign a bank loan for this amount. He says that without this loan, the business will collapse and he could lose everything he's worked for. He also mentioned that he doesn't want to ask anyone else for help because he only trusts me to make the right call. I immediately felt uneasy. $50,000 is a massive sum for me, and co-signing means I would be legally responsible if he defaults. Given Ryan's track record, he's made multiple impulsive financial decisions that didn't pan out. I felt it was extremely risky. I asked for his business plan, financial projections, contracts, and client commitments. He provided some documents, but they were incomplete and didn't convince me that the business could realistically sustain itself enough to repay the loan. I told him I could not co-sign the loan, but I offered to help in other ways. I said I could invest a smaller, manageable amount directly into the business if he provided a detailed plan, help him apply for small business grants or loans that don't require co-signing, or assist in creating a stricter budget and financial roadmap to make the business more stable. I even offered to connect him with some business advisors who could review his plan and help secure funding in a safer manner. Ryan reacted very negatively. He said I don't believe in him and that I'm sabotaging his dreams. He called me selfish, uncaring, and accused me of having no faith in his abilities. He also said that if I truly cared about him, I would take the risk and co-sign the loan. He even implied that he might have to shut down the business and lay off staff if I don't help. Our parents passed away years ago, and Ryan often brings that up, saying that he's doing this all alone and that I'm the only family he has to rely on. While I understand that he feels desperate, I also feel like he's trying to guilt me into making a decision that I cannot ethically or financially justify. I am willing to help him, but I cannot take on such a massive financial risk for something that has a very high chance of failure. Some family members have weighed in, and opinions are split. A few say I'm being unreasonable and should take the risk to help my brother chase his dream. Others agree with me, saying that co-signing a $50,000 loan for someone with a history of impulsive financial decisions is unwise and potentially disastrous. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in Ryan's story because he wants support on his terms, but I also have to consider my financial security and the precedent it would set. I also worry about the potential consequences if I did co-sign. If he defaults, I could end up losing my own savings, damaging my credit, and creating long-term stress for myself. I could also resent him if things go wrong, which could harm our relationship even further. I've explained all of this to Ryan multiple times, but he refuses to consider alternatives. He insists that only my co-signing will save the business. I feel guilty because I want him to succeed and I want to support him emotionally, but I can't ignore the financial realities. I try to frame my refusal as a form of responsible support. I'm willing to help him plan, advise, and contribute in ways that don't put me at risk. I've even offered to be a silent partner for a smaller, direct investment if he can prove the plan is viable. But he refuses all of these solutions, insisting that he only wants my co-signature. The tension between us has escalated. Ryan has stopped returning my calls and has made a few passive-aggressive comments on social media about family members not believing in him. I've tried to stay patient and continue offering alternatives, but I feel like no matter what I do, he will see me as uncaring. I also worry about the long-term impact on our relationship because this seems to be a breaking point for him. So, AITA for refusing to co-sign a $50,000 loan for my brother's catering business, even though he says it's his only chance and is framing it as life or death for his dream. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how my parents are treating me. I, 28M, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 25F. Growing up, our relationship was generally supportive, although our parents always had favorites, which unfortunately has carried into adulthood. I recently hit a breaking point that's causing a lot of tension, and I need to know if I'm in the wrong. Emma got engaged about a year ago. From the start, I was genuinely happy for her. Her fiancé, Dan, seems like a kind, smart guy, and I have no personal issues with him. What started to bother me was how my parents, especially my mom, started organizing everything around Emma's wedding, seemingly to the exclusion of me. My parents have always treated me differently. I work in a modest-paying job in education, which I genuinely enjoy, but my parents have never valued it as much as they value Emma's career in marketing. They constantly compare us, especially in family gatherings or over text. Emma's engagement amplified this behavior. It started with minor things. When discussing the guest list, my mom automatically assumed I would bring my girlfriend at the time, even though we had broken up months earlier. She also offered to help me find someone nice multiple times, which I politely declined. Emma, on the other hand, had her dream wedding planner, an extravagant venue, and a guest list that seems to reflect a social hierarchy my parents are obsessed with. The bigger issue came with the wedding itself. My parents are covering a significant portion of the costs, which is typical for our family. However, the conditions they've attached to their support are frustrating. They repeatedly insisted that I must attend the rehearsal dinner and participate in family photos in a very public way that makes me uncomfortable. They've also suggested that I should wear a tuxedo that doesn't fit my style at all and have openly criticized my usual casual approach to life. The tipping point happened last month. I had to decline a weekend trip with friends because the dates overlapped with some of the wedding prep my parents expected me to help with. I was fine helping in reasonable ways, but they demanded I be involved in every single decision and planning session, down to tablecloth colors and flower arrangements. While I politely asked to be involved only in areas where I could contribute meaningfully, my mom accused me of being selfish and unsupportive of Emma. Things escalated further when Emma asked me to be one of her groomsmen. I initially agreed, but when I expressed concerns about the demands and my discomfort with certain expectations, my parents accused me of being dramatic and ruining the wedding mood. Emma told me that she understood my concerns, but also implied that if I didn't participate fully, it could cause family tension and upset her. I tried to compromise. I offered to attend the ceremony only, help with some practical arrangements, and step back from the parts that caused me anxiety. My parents and Emma both seemed dissatisfied with this. After multiple arguments and passive-aggressive comments from my mom, I reached a breaking point. I told them I wouldn't attend the wedding unless the environment was less controlling and judgmental. I explained that I wanted to support Emma, but couldn't do so under constant scrutiny and unrealistic expectations. Now, the situation is tense. Emma is upset, though she says she understands my perspective, but she also feels hurt that I'm not fully participating. My parents have been sending me daily messages expressing disappointment, guilt-tripping me, and saying that my absence would ruin everything. Extended family members have started asking me about my attendance, and I feel trapped between supporting my sister and protecting my mental health. Some friends and coworkers have said I'm overreacting and that it's just a wedding, so I should put my feelings aside for one day. Others have told me that setting boundaries with controlling parents is healthy and that I shouldn't compromise my well-being just to avoid conflict. I genuinely don't want to hurt Emma, but I also feel that my parents' behavior has pushed me to the edge, and I can't attend in good conscience while feeling pressured, judged, and invalidated. The most challenging part is that I still love my family and my sister deeply. I've tried talking to them calmly, expressing my perspective and suggesting compromises, but nothing seems to change. My mom keeps framing it as a personal attack rather than a boundary. I'm aware that weddings are emotionally charged events and that my absence will be noticed, but I feel like attending under these conditions would be emotionally damaging for me and potentially cause resentment later. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way my parents are treating me and the unrealistic expectations they've imposed. I'm struggling with guilt, fear of family fallout, and concern that I might be viewed as the bad sibling despite my efforts to support Emma in other ways. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to punish Emma or sabotage her wedding. I just need boundaries and respect for my feelings, which seem impossible in the current setup. Has anyone faced a situation where family dynamics made attending a sibling's wedding emotionally impossible? How do I navigate this without completely damaging my relationship with my sister and parents? I feel stuck, and any perspective would help. AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Mia, 28F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but our personalities often clashed. I've always been more reserved and cautious, whereas she's outgoing, impulsive, and sometimes inconsiderate. We've had our share of fights, but I've generally tried to maintain a decent relationship with her. Recently, however, things have taken a turn that I'm not sure I can come back from. Mia got engaged last year to a man named Tyler, 30M. At first, I didn't think much of him. I had only met him a few times at family gatherings, and he seemed polite enough. As the engagement progressed, though, I started noticing things that made me uncomfortable. Tyler has a habit of making sarcastic remarks about people in a way that feels mean rather than funny. He has made several comments about my weight and my career, which I brushed off as awkward humor at first. But then he started commenting about my lifestyle choices, my friendships, and even my mental health struggles in ways that felt invasive and judgmental. I tried talking to Mia about it gently. I didn't want to come across as controlling or judgmental, but I told her I felt uncomfortable around Tyler and that I thought some of his comments were hurtful. Mia's response surprised me. She laughed and said I was being too sensitive and that Tyler was just teasing. She also said that he was her fiancé and that I needed to accept him if I wanted to have a relationship with her. As the wedding planning went on, things escalated. Tyler started excluding me from certain conversations and events related to the wedding. He would make passive-aggressive remarks about how family drama always seems to happen when I'm around. When I tried to speak up, Mia would defend him, saying I was overreacting and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I started feeling like I couldn't be around either of them without being criticized or belittled. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. My sister asked me to help with some DIY projects for the wedding, which I agreed to do initially. I spent a full weekend helping, cutting, gluing, and decorating. When I showed up the next time to help, Tyler had redone everything I had done and left a note saying that real adults needed to handle the tasks. I was shocked and hurt. I confronted Mia about it, and she told me not to be dramatic and that Tyler was just trying to improve things. She accused me of being jealous because I wasn't as creative as he was. I tried to explain that my feelings were valid and that it hurt to see my work dismissed, but she didn't listen. After that, I made the decision that I could not attend the wedding. I wrote Mia a long message explaining my reasons. I told her that I loved her and wanted to be in her life, but I could not be around someone who repeatedly disrespected me and made me feel small. I also explained that I was hurt by her dismissing my feelings and prioritizing her fiancé over our relationship. I offered to celebrate with her in other ways, like taking her out for a special lunch or helping with wedding preparations in ways that didn't involve being around Tyler, but she rejected all alternatives. Mia's response was explosive. She accused me of being selfish, immature, and manipulative. She said I was trying to ruin her wedding and that I was forcing her to choose between her fiancé and me. She called our parents and told them I had refused to attend the wedding, portraying me as unreasonable and dramatic. My parents were upset, but they understood some of my concerns. They told me they wished I could be there for the ceremony, but they also recognized that Tyler's behavior toward me was not okay. Since then, I've been getting mixed messages from other family members. Some say I should just suck it up for my sister's big day, while others agree with me that Tyler is disrespectful and that my boundaries are valid. Mia has barely spoken to me except for angry messages telling me I'm destroying our relationship. She has also blocked me from some social media accounts related to the wedding, which has made me feel more isolated and frustrated. I've been struggling with guilt and sadness. I don't want to be the person who misses her sister's wedding, but I also can't ignore my feelings of being disrespected and hurt. I've considered going to the wedding and just trying to stay in the background, but I'm worried that being around Tyler will lead to more conflicts and emotional harm. I've tried talking to mutual friends and family to see if they can mediate, but Mia has made it clear that she doesn't want anyone interfering. I'm now at a point where I feel like attending the wedding is impossible without compromising my mental health and self-respect. I know this will damage my relationship with Mia, but I can't see a way to maintain my boundaries otherwise. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I want to support her, but I also can't support someone who constantly disrespects me and dismisses my feelings. I'm torn between wanting to preserve our relationship and protecting my own well-being. Has anyone else been in a situation like this? I feel like I'm being judged no matter what I do, and I don't know if I'm making the right choice. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.